administration will be phasing out the program over the next 2 years. Today's September 5th deadline was set by the plaintiffs presenting the administration with 2 and only 2 real options to choose from: the likely sudden cancellation of the program by a judge, or an orderly wind down that preserves the rule of law and returns the question to the legislative branch where it belongs. The president chose the latter of the 2 options. The president made the best decision in light of the fact that the system set up by the Obama administration in clear violation of federal law. President Obama even admitted this himself when announcing the program, calling it a temporary stopgap measure and calling on Congress to act. DACA was initiated after Congress explicitly rejected the same proposal in legislative form. In other words, President Obama didn't just suspend federal law, but implemented a policy Congress had explicitly rejected. There's a misconception that DACA primarily serves as a shield from deportation. This is misleading. DACA grants work authorization to nearly 800,000 individuals who are not legally authorized to work. DACA recipients whose average age is in their 20s were not an enforcement priority before, and they certainly won't become a priority now. The priorities remain the same: criminals, security threats, and those who repeatedly violate our immigration laws. The main effect of today's announcement is that work permits and other government benefits are being gradually phased out. But rather than leave DACA recipients and the men and women of immigration enforcement in confusing limbo while the DACA program was challenged by states in the same court that struck down another of the previous administration's unlawful immigration orders earlier this year, President Obama is laying out a responsible 24-month phase-out. President Trump. No permits will be expiring for another 6 months, and permits will remain active for up to 2 full years. The president was elected partly on his promise to deliver meaningful immigration reform that puts the jobs, wages, and security of the American people first. He is delivering on that promise every day, and he has put forward serious proposals to Congress that would responsibly end illegal immigration, prevent visa overstays, remove dangerous criminals, protect American jobs and wages, and create a merit-based system that grows our middle class. These are not just President Trump's priorities, they are the American people's priorities. For decades now, the American people, immigrant and U.S. born, have asked Congress to establish a lawful immigration system that protects our country. They've asked for strong, secure borders. They've asked us to protect American security and American jobs. And they've asked us to have compassion, not only for those who are here illegally, but for unemployed American citizens, including millions of unemployed African American and Hispanic citizens who continue to suffer under a broken system. The president's DACA decision today brings us closer to a safer, fairer, and legal immigration system. Now that he has ended this unsustainable and unconstitutional program imposed by the previous administration, the president is calling on the men and women in Congress to fulfill their duty to the American people by truly reforming our immigration system for the good of all people. And with that, I'll take your questions. John?
Sarah, one question that went unanswered today was some 359 members of the DACA program enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2016. Their tour of duty would run standard 4 years, I would assume, but their DACA status would only last 2 years. If there's no fix by Congress before March the 5th, do you know what will happen to those people? Will they become ineligible to remain in the military, or will there be special dispensation? Has that been worked out?
We have confidence that Congress is going to step up and do their job. This is something that needs to be fixed legislatively, and we have confidence that they're going to do that, and we stand ready and willing to work with them in order to accomplish responsible immigration reform, and that would include DACA is certainly part of that process.
There are many Republicans who believe that getting something on the Republican side is not going to be easy, that the divisions that we see between the center and the right in the Republican Party will become only deeper. What gives you confidence that this
With all due respect, I don't think the American people elected Congress to do things that were easy. They elected them to make a government that works, to work properly, and to work for American people, and that's their job. And if they can't do it, then they need to get out of the way and let somebody else who can take on a heavy lift and get things accomplished. Major?
Sarah, in the context of DACA as a piece of legislation, would the president be willing to sign only something that addresses that, or would it also need to have components of the RAISE Act? Would there need to be funding for the border wall? Or would he be willing to sign simply that simply addresses DACA legislatively?
The president wants to see responsible immigration reform, and he wants that to be part of it. But again, we can't take just a one-piece fix. We've got to do an overall immigration reform that's responsible and frankly that's lawful, and that's what the president wants to see Congress do.
What would be the priorities for him in a comprehensive reform package? Would it be DACA and what else?
And certainly to control the border, to improve vetting and immigration security, enforce our laws, and do things that protect American workers.
Let me ask you a question on North Korea. In the president's mind, is it an option to simply contain a North Korea that possesses nuclear weapons?
Certainly the priority of the administration is to have denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and it's also to protect American citizens, but certainly the priority would be that. Phil?
Sarah, you're talking about a comprehensive immigration fix from Congress in a span of 6 months, and much to the president's frustration, Congress hasn't been able to really do much at all this year. What gives him confidence that they're going to be able to act on immigration? Has he spoken to any congressional leaders since making this DACA decision?
He's spoken to a number of leaders, but hopefully, as you guys all know, they just came back from a 3-week vacation. I think that they should be rested and ready to take on some big challenges that America faces.
Why put the fate of the lives of 800,000
Because it's Congress's job to legislate. It's not the president's job to create law. It's not. It's Congress's job to create legislation. I think that's something we all learned in 8th grade civics. I know I certainly did, and I think that every member of Congress should know that that is their duty, and we're asking them to fulfill it. It's pretty simple. I think that the American people elected them to do it. And again, if they can't, then they should get out of the way and let somebody else take their job that can actually get something done. Steve?
What consideration are you giving to negotiations with North Korea over the nuclear program?
Look, I think in terms of negotiations, we're looking at putting aggressive measures, both diplomatically, economically, and as we've said, all options are on the table, and we're going to continue to push for a safer and denuclearized Korean Peninsula, and that's the priority here. Jim?
It sounds like the president is saying, and you're saying, that if we're going to allow the Dreamers to stay in this country, we want a wall. Is that accurate?
I don't think that the president's been shy about the fact that he wants a wall, and certainly something that he feels is an important part of a responsible immigration reform package.
Can I ask you one follow-up question? Why did the president not come out and make this announcement himself today? Why did he leave it to his attorney general? It's his decision. These kids and their lives are on the line because of what he's doing. Why not have him come out and make this
It's
call?
in large part a big part of the legal process. This was deemed illegal by, I think, just about every legal expert that you can find in the country, including many of Obama's own attorneys, said that this was not lawful program.
Right.
And therefore, it would be the Department of Justice to make a legal recommendation, and that's what they did.
But the attorney general said,
Thank you, Sarah. Would the quick question, yes or no, and then a follow-up. Would the president sign a standalone DACA extension?
Again, I've addressed this. The president is hoping to work with Congress on responsible immigration reform, and I laid out the priorities that the administration has on that front.
And so the president's voiced and you voiced some objections to the constitutionality of DACA. Where does the president stand on the program itself?
I think that in the answers that I've given is that the president has been, and I think part of the reason that this is complicated and one of the reasons he's wrestled with this back and forth in large part is because this is not an easy one. And certainly something where he wants to be able to make a decision with compassion, but at the same time, you can't allow emotion to govern. And this has to be something where the law is put in place, and it's something that he would support if Congress puts it before him.
He would support it if it came with, I'm just trying
Again,
to get the specifics.
responsible immigration reform. We can't just have one tweak to the immigration system. We need really big fixes and big reform in this process, and we've laid out the principles that we feel are important in that. John Decker.
Thank you, Sarah. There's a position.
Sorry, John Decker.
Thanks, Sarah.
Right,
The president, as recently as February, had expressed sympathy for the DACA recipients. Today, we heard in a statement from House Speaker Paul Ryan, who said that these so-called dreamers have done nothing wrong. Was this a difficult decision for the president to take this drastic action, given what he said as recently as February? And does he agree with House Speaker Paul Ryan that these individuals, 800,000 individuals, have done nothing wrong?
I think largely, yes, and that's why I said it was one of the things that the president wrestled with this decision all throughout the weekend. So I kind of addressed that, so I think that's pretty clear.
It was just this weekend that he wrestled with it? It wasn't leading up to it?
Well, no, I mean, I think we've been clear throughout the process. There wasn't a final decision made until over the weekend because of the back and forth and the complexity of the issue and the ability to make the right decision and allow Congress to actually do their job and provide a fix instead of just stopping the program. And that was a big point for the president. Jordan?
Thanks, sir. I want to drill down a little more on what you mean when you say the president wants to act with heart and compassion with regard to these DACA recipients. Does that mean offering them a pathway to citizenship?
I think it means providing a more permanent solution that's done through the legislative process, done legally and responsibly, unlike the previous administration.
A permanent solution, does that mean you're like giving them legal status legislatively? Like, what is the permanent solution that
I think that's something we want to work with Congress to determine exactly what that looks like, but there has to be, something needs to be done. It's Congress's job to do that, and we want to be part of that process and make sure that there is a fix put in place and that this isn't ignored like it has been for the last 5 years.
If Congress doesn't get it done by the March 5th deadline, considering the president's personal feelings about these DACA recipients, would he consider giving them additional time to get a solution passed?
We'd like to have confidence that Congress will actually do their job. We're going to ask that they do that and that they allow us to work with them and be part of that process. But again, if Congress doesn't want to do the job that they were elected to do, then maybe they should get out of the way and let someone else do it. Stephen?
Sir, when we heard from the Attorney General this morning, he repeatedly referred to DACA recipients as illegal aliens, and at one point he intimated that hundreds of thousands of Americans did not get jobs that were taken by DACA recipients. Does the President share that view?
I think that it's a known fact that there are over 4 million unemployed Americans in the same age group as those that are DACA recipients, that over 950,000 of those are African Americans in the same age group, over 870,000 unemployed Hispanics in the same age group. Those are large groups of people that are unemployed that could possibly have those jobs. But again, we're looking for fixes. We're not looking for complaints, but we're looking for solutions, and that's our focus moving forward.
Reconcile those statistics with the idea that hundreds of thousands of people, if the president gets what he wants, would achieve legal status. How do you reconcile those two competing interests?
Well, I think one of the first things is the president is looking to create a whole lot more jobs in America so that it addresses both problems. There's a reason he's focused largely since day one of taking office in creating a better market for businesses to create jobs, to hire more people, higher wages. He's gotten rid of over 800 regulations that have helped do just that. 1.2 million jobs have been created since he came into office, and every single day we're looking for more ways to grow that number. And so we're doing our part to address and create an environment that allows people to have more jobs, and we're going to continue doing that. Kristen?
Thanks. The president vowed to treat dreamers with, quote, great heart. How is this move treating them with great heart?
I think by allowing an orderly process to take place. You know, there's a lot of people that I've seen attacking the president for not showing the level of compassion that they feel like he should. To me, the most heartless thing that I've seen all day today is that Democrats like Nancy Pelosi are using this decision today for fundraising while the president's trying to fix the situation. They are politicizing an issue instead of actually doing their job. If they would spend less time fundraising and more time focusing on solutions, we wouldn't even be in this problem in the first place.
On the president's decision, where all of this stems from, Dreamers, supporters of Dreamers say this is cold-hearted. You're leaving the future of 800,000 people uncertain, up in the air. What's your message to them?
It's not cold-hearted for the president to uphold the law. We are a nation of law and order. And the day that we start to ignore the fact that we are that, then we throw away everything that gives these people a reason to want to come to our country. If we stop becoming the country that we were envisioned to be, then we throw away what makes us special, which makes America unique. This president's not willing to do that. The previous administration was, this one isn't. But we want to have real solutions. We want to have laws that address these problems, but it's Congress's job to legislate, not the president's. And we actually want to uphold the Constitution, and I think people across this country should be celebrating the fact that they have a president that is standing up and upholding the Constitution as he was elected to do.
Margaret. I'd like to ask you about North Korea, but quickly on DACA. Is the president committed to honoring the will of Congress, essentially whatever Congress passes on DACA, or does he reserve the right to veto a DACA fix if he feels that it doesn't kind of holistically do what you're talking about, a bigger picture thing that touches on some of these?
As I've said, we want responsible immigration reform, and that would be part of that package and part of that process.
So on the North Korea, if I could just ask. Vladimir Putin has said that he doesn't believe that sanctions are going to work at all against North Korea, and I'm wondering whether the president himself is coming around to that perspective, or whether he still believes sanctions can be effective, and if he has any plans that you could share with us to talk with the Chinese president or the Russian president himself.
Look, we've been clear about what our priorities are, that now is not the time for us to spend a lot of time focused on talking with North Korea, but putting all measures of pressure that we can, and we're going to continue through that process. We've also said that everybody, including Russia, including China, need to do more to address the threat. This is a global threat, and everybody needs to take part in putting pressure on North Korea. And as we've said many times before, both Secretary Mattis and the President, that all options are on the table, and we're going to continue to keep them on the table until we get the results that we're looking for.
Sarah, the president has said that the DACA recipients should rest easy. He's also said on several occasions that he loves them. Is he giving them his personal assurance that at the end of 6 months they will not be deported?
I think he is giving Congress the ability to do their job. I've said that earlier.
He said they should rest easy.
Look, the president gave the ability for us to have a 6-month process for Congress to actually step up and fix this problem, and they certainly have the ability to, and certainly should take that opportunity.
One other question about during the other immigration moves that the administration has made. You've made the argument that the president's powers over immigration are very, very broad and unquestioned. Why in this case does he feel he can't do anything by himself and he has to turn it over to Congress?
That was a specific statute within the Constitution that allows the president to take action to protect Americans. These are two very different things, and certainly not apples to apples. John Gizzi.
Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions on DACA.
2-question Tuesday.
Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a close ally of the president's, denounced the decision because of the 6-month delay in it and said there should be no phase out. It should have been implemented immediately. What's your response to that criticism from a strong supporter and ally of the president?
I think our response is pretty clear. The president made a decision, and we feel very much that it was the right one.
The other thing is that you talk about 4 million jobs that could go to other people. Has the president ever discussed this part of DACA with some of the leaders of organized labor to try to involve them in the process? President Trumka of the AFL-CIO, President Hoffa of the Teamsters, and others that they work with.
I'm not sure about specific conversations on that exact figure, but I do know that he has had conversations with individuals and relevant stakeholders in this process on both sides that know that that is an issue, whether DACA existed or not. The fact that there are 4 million people in this age group that are unemployed, and certainly why creating a better job market is a priority for the administration. Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. I wanted to follow up on what Jim asked. I don't know that we heard back here the rest of your answer. You said that the reason that Attorney General Jeff Sessions put out the earlier statement on camera was because it was a legal argument. But a lot of what we've been talking about in here is a legislative argument. Why have we not heard from the president directly on this today? And can we expect to hear from him later today on this?
You have heard directly from the president. He issued a pretty lengthy statement directly from the president.
Why was it Attorney General Jeff Sessions that went on camera when the president hasn't went on camera to make this case today about what a big heart he has and how compassionate he is and how he wants Congress to take legislative action on this to essentially save DACA?
The president's spoken about this numerous times in the past, but at the same time, this was a legal issue because there was a court decision that had to be made with a timeline not placed that the administration created, but a timeline that was created by the attorney generals in those states that were forcing this issue and this decision to take place by today. It was a legal decision, and that would fall to the attorney general, and that's why he would be the one making the announcement. Peter.
Talk about stakeholders. Has the president met any enrollees in the DACA program?
I believe he has had several conversations with enrollees and those that have been part of the program.
Can you tell us anything about that and what context and what have you got out of those conversations?
Look, again, I think that the president's goal was to talk to a lot of people on both sides of the issue and, one, do what it takes to uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, but also allow Congress to create a permanent solution and fix the problem, which he's done by allowing for that 6-month period.
Conversations recently as part of this recent deliberation?
Again, I'm not sure on the exact timeline, but I know he has had many conversations with people on both sides of this issue. Certainly people that support keeping it as is and those that support getting rid of it.
People will be affected by it though, right?
Right. Again, like I said, I know had conversations with people that have been part of the program. Catherine.
Sir, you said the president wrestled with this decision all weekend. Can you walk us through any of the process he went through to get to this? When did he make the decision? Who was he consulting with? Sort of how this came about?
He made the final decision over the weekend, and as I said, he spoke to many relevant stakeholders and individuals that support a variety of positions on this program.
Also, Sarah, can you tell us anything about the meeting today, the Big Six? What are you expecting out of that, or anything you're hoping to get out of that?
We'll continue to keep you guys posted. I think the ultimate goal is, as Congress is coming back into session, to talk about some of the big priorities, certainly tax reform, immigration reform, among many other things that are going to be on the agenda for the fall. No.
I'm sorry. The president.
I'll go here and then I'll come back to you.
The president's basically told Congress to do this, but he hasn't written any legislation similar to how he approached.
I didn't know it was the president's job to write out specific details of legislation. I think that's
other presidents
exactly
with their major initiatives have taken a greater role in helping to craft that legislation. They found friendly allies in Congress to actually be the ones to propose it, but this president has not. Why has he made that shift? And does he think is he reconsidering it in light of the fact that some of the other major pushes he's tried to make have not been successful legislatively?
We've laid out detailed principles, and we have worked with members of Congress on specific pieces of legislation, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Sarah. Quick international question. The situation in Myanmar is quickly escalating into a major humanitarian crisis. Has the president been briefed on the situation in Myanmar, and if so, is he planning to speak to any of the leaders in the upcoming meeting about this situation?
I know this is something that we're monitoring closely, but I'm not aware of any specific conversations that are planned at this time. But as always, in calls like that, we will keep you guys posted and put a readout after. Cecilia?
The president says that Dreamers will be a priority for enforcement, but that's not a guarantee of protection. Is this White House willing to offer one?
Those are certainly, again, they're not a targeted priority, but the goal here is that Congress actually fixes the problem, and then that isn't an issue. And so that's the focus over the next 6 months, is making sure that something takes place, that Congress does their job, and a real solution is implemented.
But is there a way to put this in writing so that these 800,000 people who are very fearful of ending up in a country that they don't know have some guarantee that in fact they won't be deported in 6 months?
I think that the statement that the president put out earlier today lays out what the priorities are and lays out what the focus of the administration is, and that they are not targets. They are certainly not priority targets of this administration. They weren't before, and they won't be now. And again, Congress has 6 months, which is a pretty long time to get something done, and we hope they do, and there's a solution in that so that this isn't a problem moving forward. Yeah.
I was wondering, you mentioned that the president had spoken over the weekend or in recent days to various stakeholders. We had talked to the Attorney General's office in Texas, and they said they did not get a heads up or any, nobody conferring with them about this. Did you all talk to the 10 states, and are you positive that they are not suing?
I know that various members of the administration have been in contact with individuals in those states. I'm going to wrap here, but I have one note to.
So wait, we didn't answer the second part.
I have one thing I'd like to just add. The president will be announcing the donations that he will be personally making to the various charities, and thank you to those of you that have submitted. We had several people put in submissions, and he'll be doing that tomorrow. And again, I know there were a lot of questions over the weekend. That will be a personal donation of $1 million from the president to various organizations and charities, many of which came from this room. So thank you again for that. Hope you have a good day.
Was the DACA decision a Christian decision?
From Sarah Huckabee Sanders. This is the post show for the White House press briefing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Well, she's not on the post show, but we're going to talk about it. I am Steve Lookner. This is Right Side Broadcasting. We want to hear what you thought about the briefing. Some really interesting stuff about DACA on that briefing, actually. One thing I noticed, and we'll talk about this more, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was suggesting that the president actually would not sign. From what I heard, she was suggesting his president would not sign just a clean DACA bill. So if Congress said it just passed a bill that says DACA is now legal, it sounded to me like Sarah Sanders was saying President Trump won't sign that, and there's got to be a more comprehensive immigration bill, and that would certainly make it a lot harder to get a DACA fix, because now you're talking about Congress having to agree on some big comprehensive immigration bill, whereas they don't, and they only have, I guess, 6 months to do it, and there's a lot of other stuff on their plate as well. So that's something I noticed. But what do you think? What did you think about the briefing? Write to me at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. Let me know, and I'll read your comment on the air. And real quick, I just want to say thank you. During the briefing, we got donations from Why Are People Racist and Beth Dimmick. You both gave donations. We really appreciate the donations because those allow us to be on the air. We're viewer supported. So if you like our coverage and you want to support us with a donation, help us keep on the air, you can go to the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat room, or you can just go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And don't forget, subscribe to us on YouTube and click on the notifications bell, because we always do live breaking news videos. For example, this hurricane is working stronger and stronger. I'm guessing we'll do some sort of hurricane coverage. I hope the hurricane misses the U.S., but it looks like it's going toward Florida. So be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Let's get to some of your messages about what you thought about the briefing. Again, one of the most interesting things I saw, to repeat, is that Sarah Sanders repeatedly suggested that the president won't just sign a plain DACA legalization bill. She wants other reform. It sounded like other things that might need to be in that bill for the president to sign it would be money for the wall. That's one thing which would need to be in the bill. It sounded like maybe that's the case. So that was interesting. And also there was another thing where, repeatedly she was asked, can you guarantee, and we actually talked in the pre-show, and I was saying she was going to be asked this. Can you guarantee that to DACA recipients that they won't start getting thrown out of the country in 6 months? And she would not do it. She said the president has said they won't be a priority, but she would not say we guarantee that they won't get thrown out of the country. So yeah, we'll see what happens with this, but Congress, I guess, has 6 months now to start to pass some kind of sort of immigration bill. But it sounds like it can't just be a DACA bill. Although I'll say this: would Congress ever do this? Would Congress ever just pass a DACA bill by itself? And all the bill says is that DACA is now legal. And what they could then do is send the president the bill to sign it, and then they put the burden on the president to not sign it, and the president would have to veto it, which he might still do. So all of this to see what happens with. But anyways, I want to get to your messages now. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Joanne Goldsnyder says, so Joanne, you say I thought Jim Acosta did ask a question. You're telling me Sarah didn't call on Acosta. I seem to remember him being asked a question because he said, I think he asked, why didn't the president come out and say this himself? I might be wrong, but I thought I remember Acosta speaking. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Elizabeth Burwell says, the press and all voting Americans need to start pressuring Congress, emails, tweets, letters, etc., in a big way to push them to work on problems. We need real solutions. Hopefully DACA will shine a bright light on this. I am one of many Americans tired of these clowns. Why do we allow this? I would be fired for not producing real results. And something, you're talking about, Elizabeth, is Sarah Huckabee Sanders repeatedly today said, we want Congress to do their jobs, and if they're not going to do their jobs, they should get out of the way and let somebody in there who's going to do their jobs. And she's talking about that. She thinks, and the administration thinks, it's Congress's responsibility to pass immigration law and deal with immigration issues. Elizabeth Luker just gave $10. She gave a donation earlier, so thank you, Elizabeth. She said, I'd give one of my kidneys to have been with old Barry during that. Just kidding about the kidney to any liberals. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the donation. AM writes in, read what Abe Lincoln said about blacks in his fourth debate with Douglas. I couldn't believe the racist things he said. Wow. He said whites are to be considered supreme to blacks, on and on. Look it up. You will be shocked. I would have to look this up. I don't know if I at some point read this and forgot, so it sounds like you're saying he would be wrong to have said those things. Thanks, AM, for writing in. Black and Proud writes in, as I thought, Trump will use DACA as a bargaining chip to get his wall. Promise keeper and master negotiator. And and so this is something Black and Proud did write in earlier, several hours ago during our broadcast of the Sessions announcement. And she and several other viewers wrote in, we think that President Trump is going to use DACA in some sort of negotiation. Now, that could work, but at the same time, as I said before, tying DACA to other things will make it harder for Congress to actually pass DACA. So we're seeing some protests today now about DACA, and after that press briefing, we might see more. But if in 6 months from now, whatever you think about the DACA bill, if in 6 months from now, DACA recipients start getting deported from the country, I think you'll see even like more serious protests. Because these would be people who grew up in this country, basically. So, I mean, I'm not advocating either way. I'm just saying, like, this issue is not going away, and it's going to be more. You're going to see more and more passionate feelings on both sides about this issue. Ace Trades just made $2 donation. Thank you, Ace Trades, and said, I didn't hear anything about Irma. Shocked face. Well, most of it was indeed about DACA. It's a shame, when too much gets taken up about one thing. Irma is a very important issue. It's 185 mile an hour, one of the strongest hurricanes ever in the Atlantic, and nothing gets asked about in the briefing. Not that DACA is not important, but I would like to hear something about the federal government response to Irma, that kind of thing. I like that the guy asked the question about Myanmar and what's going on there. I'll say that. Let me get some more of your message. Yeah, Amy says what I thought, that Jim Fake News... well, I didn't say this, but she says Jim Fake News Acosta did ask questions. Yeah, I did see Acosta speaking. Av Europa says... Let's see. No, that was just a response to a tweet. I'm getting some more of your messages. Badger Fool says, I think this is great tactically by Trump. It means every member will have to take a stand on immigration in the 18 run-up. Let's see here. By the way, so if you have thoughts on the briefing, we want to hear what you have to say. Did you like the briefing? Did you not like it? Did you like what Sarah Sanders had to say? What did you think about the questions that were asked? Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Also, I post about a lot of breaking news stuff, so if you like breaking news, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Lookner, and follow Right Side Broadcasting at RSB Network, and be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell. Finally, we love when you like our videos on YouTube and you share them on Facebook. We're not a big company. We can't afford advertising. So that really helps share the word about our videos. Adriana Street, I think it's pronounced. I always forget how to pronounce your last name. It's S2U. Anyways, I'm going to say Steet right now, but correct me, Adriana, if I'm wrong. She says, reading between the lines won't help, and neither will those silly dreamers who are already demonstrating. They have 24 months' time. Mainstream Media Lies says, after the San Jose rally attacks, any empathy for me was 100% gone. Rare Peppy Merchant said, Sarah did amazing today. She's handling the fake news media like a pro. JC, one of our fine moderators who work so hard in the chat room, says, Steve, what I don't understand is if DACA was illegal in the first place, what's the problem? End DACA, period. JC, that reminds me, one talking point I'm surprised we didn't hear Sarah Huckabee Sanders say, and this is regardless of whether you are for DACA or against DACA, I'm very surprised Sarah Huckabee Sanders didn't say something like this. Because, a lot of the questions are like, these people are, they've had this DACA thing and now you're like, the government's turning on them and it's heartless. I could have seen Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying something like this. What was heartless was that President Obama gave these people false hope by declaring a policy he knew was illegal to declare and would make these people think they were going to permanently be allowed to stay in the country when President Obama knew that it was possible that a different administration could come in and not support the policy, or the courts very well might overturn it. That's what's heartless. It's heartless for him to have done something he knew was illegal and that very well might get overturned and give people this false hope. Now, I'm not saying I believe that either way. What I'm saying is that to me was a talking point I definitely could have seen being made, and it never came up in the briefing. So I'm a bit surprised that the White House didn't make that talking point. Now, getting to some more of your messages. Trumping the Globe says, you can use this. I feel very sorry for Sarah Sanders. Mainstream media badgers her and constantly asks her the same questions and tries to change the way they ask. And in the end, none of them can ask a real different question. They all need to be replaced, especially CNN and Major. Eddie K just gave a donation. Thank you, Eddie K. Eddie K gave $10 and says, why won't she just say asked and answered when the media gets repetitive? Now, so I understand what you're saying, Eddie. Now, sometimes she does turn away from them and just says something like that. It seems like today she was engaging with the repeated questions a bit more than sometimes she does. Now, the questions, when I say repeated questions, they're not exactly the same, but someone might say, well, they're substantially the same. Charlie Babbitt says, noticed Sarah Huckabee Sanders mentioned reform. Not sure that Trump supporters want reform. We want enforcement. So, well, I mean, when she says reform, Charlie, she might mean like we want a wall. And, I understand your point that Trump supporters might not want DACA. It sounded like the administration was willing to accept DACA in a more comprehensive bill that, say, involved other things like wall funding. So it's not exactly clear what the administration would accept now. We'll have to see what Congress comes up with. Black and Proud says, tying DACA to a bill will make it easier to pass and not harder. Most GOP wants wall and Democrats want DACA. A 6-month timeline and threat of deportation puts real pressure on Congress. It will get it done. I understand what you're saying in the sense of, you're saying if the bill has things like wall money in it, maybe it makes it easier for some Republicans to vote for the bill, whereas they wouldn't before. The problem to me is as soon as you put in wall money, then maybe most or all of the Democrats, say in the Senate, won't vote for the bill, and you won't be able to get it passed in the Senate. So I don't know. I mean, personally, I feel as soon as you start complicating things, that's going to make it harder to have it pass. Maybe I'll be wrong about that. This is the post show for the Sarah Sanders White House press briefing. We are taking your comments. What do you think about what happened in the briefing? What do you think about the fact that Sarah Sanders would not guarantee that they would not start deporting DACA recipients in 6 months when their DACA permits start running out? What did you think about Sarah Sanders saying that seemed to imply that the president would not just sign a bill which only instituted DACA as law and said it needed to be part of a comprehensive reform package. Not much on North Korea. See, that was disappointing to me. North Korea is so important. Very little on North Korea during the briefing today. At some point, she said something like all options are on the table. But that's so important, North Korea. They just tested it, according to the U.S. Assessment that I saw, 140 kiloton hydrogen bomb. And we get 1 or 2 questions in the briefing? I don't know. I mean, that's a really important issue. And there hasn't been a briefing since that test. This was the first one. So write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know if you have any thoughts on what happened today. Oh, I see some emails too I'll read. But also, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Lookner and follow Rightside at RSB Network. And again, if you're liking our coverage, even if you can make a small donation, it really helps us because we are viewer supported. You can donate by clicking the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Speaking of which, Frank Gardner just gave $10. Thank you, Frank. We really appreciate it. And Frank says, do you think Congress will prioritize DACA legislation over Kate's Law, tax reform, RAISE Act? If they did, what do you think the consequences will be? I have no idea, Frank. It's a good question. There's so much on Congress's table right now. Now, maybe the immediate stuff they have to deal with is like, if they don't deal with the budget resolution and raising the debt ceiling in the next month, we'll default on our debt and the country will, and the government will have shut down. So they got to deal with that. And then tax reform, I think they want to deal with at the end of the year, by the end of the year. So, but at the same time, you know, it's like there's so many things they need to deal with. Also, so it's just, they haven't voted on a Harvey funding bill, although I'm sure they'll vote on that pretty soon. So, it's a great question. What priorities are they going to have? I don't know, you know, but it seems like a lot to do in 6 months if they're going to do all that stuff, given the way Congress has been working lately. Greg Jackson writes in, I believe Acosta was asked 2 questions, wasn't allowed any more than that. Shane Finch says, Trump should do a national contest and allow the winner to be press secretary for a day. Would you enter the contest? Well, I actually think that'd be a super hard job. I don't know if I'd want to enter it. I think, like, also if you're going to be a press secretary, like, you probably need a few press briefings just to even figure out like what's going on, because it's so crazy being up there and having to deal with all these questions and personalities. So I don't know. It feels like if you just only got one shot at it, I'd probably be bad at it anyway, even if I had more than one shot. But if I had one shot, I'd especially be like, I'll be really terrible. So I don't know if I'd enter that contest. Although, you know, I could be press secretary every day, and I could just spend the whole briefing just promoting Right Side Broadcasting during the press briefing. So that might be good. Maybe I'd enter then. Greg Jackson also writes, and every dreamer who screeched that Trump wasn't their president now desperately wants him to be their president. How convenient. Now, Greg, why are you saying this? You're saying, do you think dreamers want Trump to be their president because he's trying to get Congress to pass a law? Now, I will say this. Let me say this. If Congress ends up passing a law that makes DACA law instead of a presidential order, and the president signs it, dreamers will be so much better off than they were before. Now, I don't know if this will happen, but that would, if DACA was codified as law, rather than this presidential order that could get changed at any time by a new president or overturned by the courts, that's a huge deal. So dreamers could end up way better off than they were before. However, if DACA goes away and they start getting deported, they'll end off worse than they were before. We'll have to see what happens. But write to me, let me know what you thought of the briefing. We're still taking your comments here at Lookner on Twitter, at Lookner. Trumping the Globe says, it's not just Trump supporters who should be for this. Republicans, Democrats, and liberals all need jobs to feed their families. We can't do that with nearly 1 million undocumented immigrants. It's not fair to America and our children. Do a quick news check here, see what's going on. You know, I like to check during the briefings. I don't really get a chance to check the news, so. Now, some people are skeptical about Congress. I actually know this person, although I haven't seen her in years. But Erica Werner, the journalist, What does she write for now? AP. She says, a Congress that couldn't repeal Obamacare is now being asked to reform the immigration system. So she's skeptical, but Sarah Sanders says Congress should do their job and start passing legislation. So we'll have to see what happens. We just got a donation, another donation from Why Are People Racist? Thank you for another donation. We appreciate it. $10. And Why Are People Racist says, what happened to the days when America saved money instead of spending debt money? If we can't help our country save our people, why should we help people that don't want to help themselves? Thanks again for the donation. I'm just doing a quick news check here. So this is from Ryan Maui, who's a meteorologist I follow, and he says, no change to this, I guess it's a certain model forecast from last night. This is about Hurricane Irma. A long sojourn over Cuba, and then a hard right turn north across the Florida Keys. So this forecast model has the hurricane. This is kind of scary because if you look at this forecast model, it has a hurricane going over Cuba, which might weaken it a bit, but then it turns up north, and it looks like it could go right up north through Florida, which would not be good. So that is something we're keeping our eye on here. We hope it doesn't do that. Although we hope it does. Well, we don't want to hurt. We hope it just goes away. That's what we hope, but I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, and as we were saying, he says, this meteorologist Ryan Maui, he says, land interaction with Cuba would disrupt the inner core and could reduce Florida impacts, although that's relative. Irma is still probably a Category 4+ when it hits Florida, I guess the idea is, if it hits Florida. So this is our post show for the Sarah Huckabee Sanders press briefing, White House press briefing. We're going to be on a little while longer. If you have thoughts about any of the things Sarah Sanders was asked about or talked about, write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Black and Proud says the Constitution demands in the 14th Amendment that we cannot default on our debt. Government has plenty of dollars to service the debt. So you're saying they'll just pass a debt ceiling raise. However, some Republicans especially don't like passing debt ceiling raises because they think it's irresponsible of us to have so much debt. So just so you know, coming days, we do this briefing, we do this White House press briefing coverage every day. We do the pre-show and the post-show whenever there's a White House press briefing on. If you want to know when we're coming on with it, I would advise you subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell. Also follow us on Twitter at RSB Network because we always tweet out when we're coming on the air. And you can also follow me at Lookner. I cover a lot of breaking news stuff if you like that. And also keep a lookout because, whether it's the hurricane or North Korea, we come on the air all the time with live breaking news videos. Sometimes even when the mainstream media isn't even covering it, we're on the air. So when stories are important, we want to come on the air and cover them and give you a chance to give your views on the air. So keep an eye out for our coverage, and if you like it, we'd appreciate you considering a donation because your donations keep us on the air. You can go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click the $ to donate, or rsbn.tv/donate. rsbn.tv/donate. Seeing if you have any other messages here that I haven't gotten to yet. Trying to get to them as they come in. And I also want to just get to my notes about the briefing. See if there's anything else I forgot to talk about. She said it's Congress's job to legislate. If they can't, they should get out of the way and let somebody else do it. Let's see. She said when she was asked if the president would sign just a DACA bill, she said we need responsible immigration reform. You can't just have one tweak to the immigration system. She didn't rule out the president extending the DACA deadline if Congress doesn't act. So something we'll have to watch. She was asked several times, why didn't President Trump speak about this today? Why did Jeff Sessions? Why was he the one who made the announcement? And she said this was a legal matter because what President Obama did was illegal. So she said it was appropriate for Jeff Sessions to be the one who made the announcement. And, okay, I think at this point, we've gotten to your messages. I think we're going to wrap it up. We've had a lot of coverage this morning. We had coverage of the Jeff Sessions announcement in the pre-show and the post-show. This has been the briefing pre-show and post-show. So I think we're going to wrap it up. For all we know, there's going to be breaking news later today. We'll keep an eye on protests and stuff. So we'll wrap it up now. We'll take a little break from coverage, and we'll see what happens. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell if you want to know when we're coming on the air live with breaking news, which can happen at any time. I want to thank Joe and Jake for producing today, doing such a great job. Everybody in the chat room for chatting, and everybody who sent me messages during the day. Always love when you guys contribute and get your comments on the air. And Timothy Bonsar just said, looks like there's a rally in Texas today about DACA. Are you going to covering it? Yeah, we'll keep an eye on these rallies. You know, we'll have to see what footage we have and how big the rallies are. So it's something we will watch for. We might very well come back on. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at RSB Network. We'll let you know if we're covering something. You can follow me at Lookner again on Twitter. And also, I'll tweet out breaking news if I find it. And thanks to everybody who donated today. Very much appreciated. Your donations keep us on the air. Go to rsbn.tv/donate if you want to donate. And thanks to the moderators in the chat room for moderating the chat all morning. We've been on for a while today, both here and on the website. Big ups to you. And I think that's going to wrap it up for here. Oh, well, AM sent one more message, and AM says, I hated the press conference. They didn't ask one question about North Korea, but spent all the time attacking Trump for being uncompassionate. Now, I think they asked at least one question about North Korea, because I remember Sarah Sanders talking about it, but it might have been only one question. And as I was saying before, I don't think they talked about North Korea enough in this press briefing because it's such an important issue. Anyways, all right, we're going to wrap it up here. We'll if there's more breaking news, we'll be on the air with it. We'll keep an eye on a hurricane, on the protests, on everything else. But for now, thank you so much for watching Right Side Broadcasting. Hope you have a good rest of your day. And we hope that hurricane turns away and doesn't hit the U.S. It doesn't really hit anybody, but we're worried about it, so we'll keep an eye on that. And for now, stay tuned. We'll be back soon with some more Right Side Broadcasting programming. That's all I got to say right now. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thanks for all your contributions today and your input to the broadcast. And have a good day, and we'll see you for the next broadcast on Right Side Broadcasting.